Hello, my name is Mary Miele. I am a tutor, a teacher, a parent, and the founder of Evolved Education Company. We are a full-service tutoring and advisement company for all of your educational solutions. On this podcast, we'll explore ideas, techniques, and resources that you can use to support your school-aged child to conquer any learning issue. I'm so glad you're here. Hi, everyone. We are here today to talk a little bit about social emotional well-being, especially important right now following the pandemic, but important as always to our mission of having students learn well. And I'm Mary Miele, and Becky's not actually introducing the podcast this month. Do you want to say hi, Becky?
Hi, everybody. Glad to be here. My voice is off. That's why I'm not going to talk that much.
I feel like we now have to say, like, it's not COVID, but
it's not.
I feel like I'm constantly like that. Yeah. So
just a cold.
Totally. So we just totally got on the phone with our new friend, Jamie Sall, who we immediately connected with, and then just literally said to her, "Hey, do you want to be on our monthly podcast?" And she's like, "Yeah, I totally do." So anyway, we are so excited because honestly, Jamie has such an interesting background and is such an important resource for families and for the parents who listen to this podcast regularly because, you know, she comes from teaching. She also comes from a background of special education. And then she also comes from the background of social work and this psychology interest and just this really interesting way of helping our kids to be socially, emotionally well. So I'm going to let Jamie introduce herself to us all. And then we have some questions we're going to ask her so we could learn today and grow along with her. So Jamie, welcome.
Thank you so much, Mary and Becky, and thank you for the wonderful introduction. So my name, as we said, I'm just like, everyone, hi, it's Jamie. This is Jamie, and I am a child and adolescent psychotherapist. And in the field of social work, it's a very broad field. So my area is really zoomed in on the social emotional well-being of children. But with working with children, that's not the only member of their system. I like to call it the child system. So what's part of their system? So it could be their family. It could be their school. It could be their external team, nutritionist, physical therapist, occupational therapist. The list goes on, right? It could be academic tutors. So really addressing the whole child system. And as a social worker, I work part of a group practice run by Dr. Stacey Lessons, and we're based in New York. And the practice really focuses on this 360 approach to working with a child. So that focuses on addressing their social emotional needs, how it impacts them in the school, socially, at home, at soccer practice, all of the above. And as Mary just highlighted, I was an educator previously. So as an educator, I see what it's like on the education side and now combining it with the social emotional side. So I'm wearing these two hats, right? And addressing children spend at least 7 hours a day at school. That's such a large chunk of their day. And as we all know, school isn't just school. It's socializing, it's teamwork, it's perseverance. It's so many of these things. So my role is to address the overall picture rather than just part of the picture, the overall picture of the child.
I just love the idea of addressing a child within their system. I've never thought of it that way before, but I love that. And I really want parents listening to hear that because we as parents are addressing our children within a system. We may not even know it, but immediately they're born and we call in the pediatrician, and then we have our extended family having input. And then we have now these different realms of our child we have to consider: their physical well-being, how they're doing with their nutrition, right? Are they eating? Are they sleeping? And so we're just coming into this role already considering the system of our child. So I think you're right. Like, to address the social emotional well-being of a child, it requires a look at the system. That's so interesting. And I really connected when you said that, because of course, Evolved has this same 360 approach. We just can't help it because we never consider a child's academic functioning within its own self. We always consider it as a part of a larger system, which is such a great way of saying that. Really great. Thank you. So I want to talk a little bit about, what would you say characterizes social emotional well-being? What are we looking for as parents? What do we want our kids, what's the goal here? I guess is my point, right?
So as parents, your children are your prized possessions. I do not take that lightly. And no one should take that lightly, right? Every parent wants the best for their child. But what is the best, right? If we think down, let's say your child's 5 now, and we think down to junior in high school, getting a great score on the ACT, is that what the best is? Is the best being the quarterback on the football team? What is the best? So when I think of the role of parents, we want to form children that are independent and confident. That's an overall arcing goal, right? Yes, of course, we would like them to try their best in school. It would be nice to be really good at the violin, right? Those are all pluses, right? But our overarching goal is independence and confidence. So with social emotional well-being, this term is thrown around so much. And what really is it? So I like to think of it as, okay, social, right? Socializing with people, and emotions. If we break it down like that, it seems pretty simple, but it goes way more into that. So I like to look at it as self-management. So emotional regulation. So understanding your emotions and being able to identify them. So for different ages, that might look a little different, right? But for a kindergartner, that could be feeling, I am frustrated because I can't have Skittles for breakfast. But for someone older, it could be, I'm feeling frustrated, and that is why I am avoiding doing my homework, right? So it looks different. But emotional regulation could also be understanding your triggers, understanding what is causing your body to feel a certain way and regulating that, and what strategies, what can be in your toolbox. It could also be part of that is self-awareness, that understanding piece. In school, teachers always say, it's not always about the answer, it's about the process, right? I know as a teacher, I used to say that all the time. So understanding that, having an understanding of what's going on. And also another part that I like to focus on is relationship skills. Especially with COVID, there's been some impact with relationship skills, but nonverbal communication, and sometimes just like spatial awareness with your body, with interacting with others. Some things we just expect children to know. And for some kids, it comes much more naturally to than others, right? And we just expect it. It's not always directly instructed or broken down into small steps or parts to understand. We just snap of fingers, we expect them to know it. So understanding relationship skills. What does it mean to be in a friendship? What does a good friend mean? What does compromise have to do with being in a friendship? Right? If I want to play trucks and someone else wants to play blocks, we may have to compromise. Right? So all of these parts of a relationship, the give and take, the understanding the social cues and understanding, all falls under, I like to think of it as an umbrella of social emotional well-being or social emotional learning.
Wow, that's so cool. I mean, it's so interesting that you brought up the pandemic, because I was just speaking with some parents this weekend, and we were just commenting that there seems to be some scars that are very subtle, yet very apparent for us parents, right, around that social piece. And yet many schools in the classrooms are just moving forward with what they normally do. And maybe that's not happening everywhere, but it's happening enough that we're all talking about it. And I just want to pause there, because maybe a parent's listening to this and you haven't thought about this, but our children were definitely taken out of school for at least, let's say, 6 months. Let's just say that, right? And during that 6 months period, they did not interact the same way that they would in a classroom setting with each other. And I just want to bring an analogy to this. When I had my second kid, it was fascinating to watch how much he looked at his brother over me in learning what he was learning. And I think children really do pick up a lot from each other that we can't, as adults, really replace, I guess, without intention. I would say maybe that's the best way of saying that, right? But it's fascinating to me because we do have these very odd, subtle moments with kids interacting with kids now, and there's a lack of skill sometimes. And I think this is because we had a gap, right? And there were some times that they didn't really learn from each other what they usually are learning, right? Which makes this explicit instruction even more important, because whenever there's a gap, we tend to come in with explicit instruction to really fill those gaps and form those neural pathways, right? So are you seeing that too? And can you, what advice do you have for parents if, let's say, you're noticing now, you're thinking, wow, you know what, you're right. Like there are some gaps in my kids' social functioning. They are a little awkward sometimes when they're with their friends, or they don't seem to really know how to talk on the phone, or they're not really, socializing in the same way that they could be. What do you have in terms of advice for that?
So I like to break it down into, first of all, before I get started, that is so common right now, right? And it's something, how do we teach someone to socialize, right? And what I like to do is break it down into two categories: structured versus unstructured. So structured time would be something like soccer practice is more structured. Circle time at school is more structured. Doing a chore in the house with a sibling is more structured. But unstructured is more of like free play, or going to the park, or just sitting in the car and talking with the person next to you. That's unstructured time. In a lot of these behaviors, we see the tendency to increase during this unstructured time. Because if you think about it, there's no like prompt, there's no step 1, step 2, step 3. It's pulling everything. So in a child's brain, they're like, I can talk about dogs. I could talk about the park. I could talk about what I'm doing on the test. I can do this. I can do that. There's so many options, and that can be overwhelming. So what my biggest advice in this area is turn unstructured time into more structure. And that could be exhausting for a parent. But how can we do this in simple ways that can just support our child? It's like giving a sentence stem or a cue. So, for example, if it's free time talking with a friend, right? There's like, would you rather questions are so great. So like, would you rather be able to fly or go to the moon? They're giving something to talk about. And then from there, generally, the conversation stems and moves down. Or it can be something along the lines of during unstructured time. Let's say someone comes over for a play date. What do you want to play? I don't know. What do we say from there, right? How do we engage in that conversation? What about narrowing down, instead of an entire playroom, 5 or 6 options? Choose from, less overwhelming, get started, and coming up maybe with a prompt. So instead of saying play with blocks, there could be so many things that could be done. Oh, Bobby, why don't you and Michael build a castle with a bridge? Giving that instruction, that step. So you're breaking down a large task into more digestible parts that seems that something that they can conquer and something that seems doable, rather than overwhelming. And if it is overwhelming, it fuels that cycle, right? I don't know what to do. Am I doing the right thing? Am I saying it right? Then it turns into, oh no, they're not going to like me. I'm going to be a bad friend. No one's going to like me. I'm going to sit alone at recess, right? And then it turns into that cycle. And that cycle is, we don't want that cycle to start. We want to be proactive rather than reactive. And if it does start, have the tools to stop it, and reset.
Oh my gosh. I just got so much from what you just said. So I have to like stop and process this because it's so good. Okay. So first of all, where were you when my kids were little? Because we used to have the playroom. We still have a playroom downstairs and it's still has far too many things in there. So point taken. I think the first thing everyone who's listening can do is clean out the room, put it all in the closet, 5 things in the playroom. That's it. I love that idea. Okay. The next idea that I loved was just your idea of giving prompts for that play. So I could even imagine, for example, if let's say you had a clear bin of trains, you could have your child and you could just on a Saturday afternoon create a couple of ideas of what you do with the train. What would be, you're having a play date this week. What would be so fun to have, with your play date, and what would you like to make with these trains? And then you could put them on top of that box. So they could use it or they could make something else, because you could also maybe put a little question mark. That would be something they could make up on their own. But I love the idea of being proactive, because I think that helps everyone to feel more secure and to build more skills. And and then the other idea I guess I heard you say, which is just that you could always stop and reset. So I'm also sort of giving myself a little empathy here and saying, I guess I could right now, even though my kids are a little older, clean out the playroom right now and see where it takes us. But I think that's such good advice. I love it. So great.
Oh, thank you. Also, with that being said, when we have these activities, how often do parents or teachers hear, I'm bored, I have nothing to do? Parents come to me all the time saying, I'm bored. Even when there's play dates or activities, we keep our kids busy so much, right? So I like to create an I'm bored list of all the activities that you feel comfortable with your children doing in your house or apartment when they're bored. And this can be used with a friend. So it could be broken down into small lists, right? So there's not too many options. And instead of saying, oh, I don't know what we're going to do, the list is there too. And as you said, right on top of the bin where the materials is a great idea. Using a visual next to it is awesome, like a picture representation, etc. So it could be building something with boxes, right? Creating an invention, doing a marshmallow toothpick challenge, building dominoes with your Jenga blocks, right? Going around, building a obstacle course. So something that they can do, because when we're getting that large, overwhelming thing, oh my goodness, there's so many options, narrowing that down.
Such a good piece of advice. I just love it. So if let's say you have a family that you're working with, what are some of the tips that you would give parents if, let's say, they're going to work with a professional on building some of these strategies? And you mentioned the system. So you mentioned also working with schools and professionals and the family. How do you best get everyone kind of working together? I remember, just as a little side story, I worked with a family a couple of years ago, and I was also in this seat myself, so I can really empathize with this, but she had gotten a physical therapist involved with her child, an occupational therapist, a speech and language pathologist, as well as a SEAT in her child's school. And she was trying to kind of coordinate everyone working together. And so sometimes that feels like a full-time job. It feels like there's a lot of moving parts. So in a situation like that, I imagine you're also working in that multiverse. What advice do you have so it doesn't feel so overwhelming or unsuccessful?
My advice for that would be communication. We want everyone on the same page. And I think consistency and communication is super important. So for example, if you're working with a tutor for math, let's say, and your teacher in school is teaching division one way, and your math tutor is teaching division a different strategy. So now your child has 2 strategies, right? And they're already, let's say, feeling a little confused, but now there's 2. Which one do we use? Maybe they'll use half of one and half of the other, right? How do we navigate that? So the consistency is really important. And that's with everything. So communicating with your external team, having quick team updates, etc. So if For example, new accommodations come out, send it to everyone, keep everyone on the same page, because children thrive off of consistency and structure. And we want that structure to remain strong. As we know, if the foundation of our house is a little shaky, it's hard to build up. So we want that consistency of that team to be strong. And it doesn't mean the team doesn't change, or it doesn't mean the strategies doesn't change, right? I like to view it as a living document, right? So like it's forever changing as your children grow, as different challenges come up, maturation, all of that, right? But communicating with each other and making sure that we're all on the same page, because the worst, we don't want to just throw strategies. Keep on throwing strategies. Now we have multiple strategies. We don't know which ones are working, right? We don't know which ones we're using. We have many to choose from, right? We want to be purposeful with our actions, and having that consistency is extremely important amongst everyone. Communication with school, external team, home, everyone on the same page.
It's such an important piece of advice. It's so hard, I will say, guilty as charged, because I can easily become inconsistent. It's just something I struggle with as a parent. And I know it's so important. And I think it's just maybe good to just continue to be reminded, because we as parents also can be very overwhelmed with how many jobs we have, and there's like seems to be an infinite number of possibilities of things we could be doing with our children at any given time. And maybe it's just helpful to prioritize that word that you just said, which was consistency. And I guess the other C word, which would be communication, right? So if we want to maybe put a little bit of a stamp on where we are with our advice here, it would be to help parents to be consistent and to have a system of communication that works for them. I know for me, I'm really good at Google Docs. It's like, I just put everything on Google Docs. It's where I work. It's how I am. But I have clients of mine who do not like the computer, and they're really not on it. They have other ways that they work or other things they do in their lives. They're just not on computers that much. And so maybe doing voice memos or having someone on your team be the gatherer of all of that content, right? And the sharer. Maybe you like live meetings. Maybe you'd rather get everyone together in a room and have a conversation. I guess the system itself isn't as important as having it. That's what I'm learning, right? Okay. Gotcha. Very, very good. Well, all right. So I like to always leave everybody with a little something to take away. Hopefully every episode gives you a little something to think about, a little new way of thinking about it. I know I learned so much from you already. I just think it's so helpful. And I guess what I just want to leave with is there any kind of really great strategies you're loving right now that you might share with us? Maybe 2 or 3 strategies that some parents could try out for different types of, I guess, pain points that you're seeing your clients having. Let's go there.
So with my strategies, I really focus on approaching your child with curiosity and understanding. So rather than, why did we do that? Right? Can you tell me a little bit more about that? I see you're frustrated, right? Tell me a little bit more about that. So with that being said, let's say there are struggles with impulsivity. So it could be in the classroom, as in blurting out the answer. At home, just saying anything that comes to mind. I like to do something, I call it a blurt out notebook. So it's a notebook, the child can pick it out, they can decorate the outside. And in the classroom, this tool is great because when the child had something they wanted to say, we're really engaged, but sometimes we have to move on in the lesson, right? Get to the independent work, get to the class work. So they write down what they want to say in their blurt out notebook. So rather than calling out, which can sometimes stop other people thinking, right? When they're taking some time to think, or just sometimes we need to move on. This blurt out notebook is used to catch all of the thoughts, catch all of the ideas. It's like a net. At some point, the teacher could review it with the student, right? At a different time. So they can get that out, answer those questions at home. This blurt out notebook could be constant interruption during, let's say, dinner conversation, or just saying what's on your mind. You're talking, your older brother's talking about school, and you're like, oh, can we go to Hershey Park tomorrow, right? So catching all of that, and then it could be released at some point. that's one strategy that is really beneficial right now. And I also really like the body to emotion connection. So I like to think of the silhouette of like a gingerbread person. So understanding how our body also has connection to our emotions, right? And how we're feeling. So what I can remember is a student always having a stomach ache before math, right? Always. They're like, oh, maybe my breakfast just didn't settle well with me. The Fruit Loops like didn't sit well with me. But understanding that our emotions, sometimes how they affect our body, right? Your stomach hurts. Is your face getting red? Does your body feel like it needs to move, right? Like understanding that connection so they can see that pattern and see how it's all connected. And this could be identifying on that gingerbread person where it's affecting your body or when it's happening. And that understanding that connection will allow you to apply strategies at that given time. So that connection is a huge part also that has been very helpful.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, that's so great. I just listened. I'm like obsessed with Mel Robbins right now. And she did an episode with Dr. Kennedy about who wrote the Anxiety RX book. And I've been reading it. And he talks a lot about the body's connection to anxiety and how when you want to heal anxiety, you have to really find out in your body where you hold that anxiety. So interesting story, personal story, but I'll share it anyway, is I have anxiety. And when I feel my anxiety, I feel it when I'm breathing. Like I hold my breath and I do very shallow breathing. And I only just really realized this recently. And then I was with my mom and I asked her, because he also asks you to go back to your childhood because something happened to you in your childhood to sort of cause your first anxiety moment. And then, sorry if you're listening and maybe you know more than I do on this. I'm a student and I'm teaching you what I'm learning. Okay. But basically what I've learned, I think, is that you go back to your childhood and you figure out like the first moments that you started to feel this way. And then you start to like tell your younger self, like, you're okay. And that sort of helps you to kind of get out of your anxiety because ultimately you most likely are okay at the end of the day. Right. So I'm asking my mom, I'm like, Mom, I feel my anxiety in my breath like this. And she's like, yeah, like, when you were 9 months old, you were crawling around your grandpa's house and their little dog barked in your face and you held your breath till you passed out. And I'm like, no way. So I'm like, it's interesting. Right. And I guess like when we were growing up, no one had the gingerbread man out and told you like, you're going to feel your feelings in your body. But I love talking about this with my kids because they're like, yeah, I totally feel it in my body. Like, this is totally correct. So I think you're onto something really brilliant there with that. And I think so many of us could benefit from the gingerbread man and from the blurt out notebook. A lot of my teenagers actually do that and they put it in their phones. Yeah. And they have a like the notes section of the phones. And sometimes we use it like with homework. So when they don't want to do their homework, they'd rather be playing their guitar, or dancing, or, hanging out with their friends. And they just write those things down on their notes. They get their homework done. As soon as they're done, they kind of go to the list and see what they still feel like doing. It's kind of a nice reward. Yeah.
Yeah. And way to prioritize too.
Yeah. It kind of works, I get that. I think we could all use that. So, oh my gosh, Jamie, I feel like we could talk to you for literally days.
Yes, I know.
Level up our own social emotional functioning in some ways. I'm actually thinking a lot about your structured and unstructured time too, because I feel like lately my social stuff has been more exciting when it's more structured. And I wonder if that's just because of the pandemic also for me, where it feels like a little better to be in a environment. It's fascinating. Really good stuff. Really good stuff. So thank you so much for being here. And where can we find you if people want to connect with you?
Yes. So my email is Jamie, JAMIE .Sall, my last name, SALL .LMSW @gmail.com. And you can also find me at drlessons.com. So Dr. DRLESSANS.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jamie and Becky. I hope your voice gets better for next next month, December.
God, I hope by December, my voice is better. I really enjoyed listening. I have so many thoughts, but I'm not going to say them.
We'll hear them soon.
Bye, everyone. See you next month. Thank you so much for listening to Evolved Education. If you like what you hear, please subscribe and write a review. You can send us any and all educational questions to hello@evolveded.com, and we'll try to address it in our upcoming episodes. That's Evolved Ed, EVOLVEDED.com. To learn more about how we can support you, go to evolveded.com and book a complimentary 15-minute phone call with us. Are you a professional educator? You can join our teaching school membership platform to gain support and engage in a community interested in learning together. Click on the link in our show notes to learn more.